Shaytanirrajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, Ji Ayanu, Bakhairagale, Nihao, Chunushumme, Washmale, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabi, Bali Kare, Hoshgal, in an Ayosai, Huyamora, Guten Morgen, and thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hadia Sati, I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan. And we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well, that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, how are you doing today? And where were you yesterday?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me. So I had some personal engagement to attend to, that's why I couldn't come. But Shahzad, I wanted to ask you, are you an ardent listener of the podcast?
I mean, yes, I do listen to podcasts. I mean, it totally depends on what kind of a mood I am in. I mean, if I'm scrolling on videos and all of a sudden, you know, I have this podcast in front of me, and if they're talking about in particular something which actually kind of gets my interest, I think I will certainly listen to that. But these days, I've heard a lot of podcasts, and I've seen a lot of people doing podcasts as well. But I'm sorry, I think that the content they're making or the kind of conversation they're having is not at par with what they need to be sharing with the audiences out there, rather than their personal experiences or probably what they want to do in life. You know, so most of the time, you know, it's not audience-centric, it's usually the guest-centric as well. What's your take on this?
I mean, I really don't know what sort of podcast do you listen to, or from which platform you attend to that podcast. But I have this Google app for the podcast, and it gives you a very diversity of the option when talking about the podcast. And I really enjoy listening to the podcast because I feel it's a very engaging medium, because you're only listening to that, you're not watching that. So while driving a car, you can listen to the podcast. And particularly, I have a very long commute from my house to my office, so I'm always listening to the podcast in between. And there was a very interesting research that they did on the podcast. It was about how people who listen podcasts more have found a more deeper meaning of the life. And I don't know how do they come to this conclusion, but
they wanted people to listen to their podcast. I think it's that simple.
I don't know if the researchers are also the podcasters, but that was an interesting research. But I do feel that it's a very it has a lot of potential, the medium has, and it's a very engaging medium because only your sense of listening is engaged with that.
And in addition to that, you know, I'm glad that you actually brought this up, and that too today early in the morning. And for me, I think Twitter Spaces have worked more efficiently, and it's because you know, I'm more into sports, and I would always follow sportsmen, you know, all over the world. So, you know, whenever they are actually having a conversation on a Twitter space, I would certainly be tuning into that.
But what if the Twitter is not there? Because we have been hearing the rumors that Twitter might not be there.
I mean, you know, I mean, what I'm thinking is,
Mastodon,
you know,
probably.
I think people do not have a lot of common sense, even though it should be common. Imagine somebody buying it for $45 billion or more and then shutting it down. Nobody would do that. You know, so obviously they might be trying, you know, they will give it their best, you know, to make it work. And it might be working. This might be a marketing
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, to me, it looks like a marketing tactic as well. But for me, for her, podcast works. For me, Twitter Spaces work. You know, so it totally depends which people you look up to and who you want to learn from. So, you know, I believe in learning from the best. So imagine if it's going to be Cristiano Ronaldo on a Twitter space speaking about something, I'll surely be there to listen to him, because those are the people who have really kind of have that impact on the future generations. And in addition to that, you know, when we speak about our generations, you know, we've worked hard day in, day out. You know, when I was 16, 17, 18, at 16, I was selling cell phones. You know, at 18, I was selling something else, you know, so we were that generation. Now, I know that technology has actually changed the entire diaspora of how people think, but I think that the future generations will actually have easier accessibility to all of those facilities we didn't have to.
Maybe, but obviously a lot of jobs are going to be created in the future which do not even exist today, right? So moving on to our top stories segment, the government of Pakistan is providing all possible facilitation to the investors to promote foreign investment in Pakistan. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says the coalition government is taking every possible measure to strengthen the economy. That's a good news, Shehzad, right?
Yeah.
And Prime Minister was also talking to a delegation of international investment banking and capital markets firm Jefferies in Islamabad. So, I mean, we're really glad that this sort of news is coming in, especially we need such kind of reassurances in the era of the global inflation, where we feel that there's talk of recession coming globally, and how, I mean, the energy prices are shooting up, etc., etc., and obviously that is impacting the common masses. But having said so, I mean, such sort of news where the Jeffries is coming and meeting the Prime Minister is obviously a welcome step. And obviously, Google is also opening its store in Pakistan, and YouTube is the fastest growing market for the Google. So I'm really glad, Shehzad, that the new dimension of the technology has taken place, especially how at the intersection of the economy. Because a lot of Pakistani YouTubers are going there, they're producing the content, and they're gaining the self-autonomy sort of a thing from the YouTube, right?
I mean, it is great, and it is welcoming, and obviously Pakistan will open its arms for such amazing organizations to come and open up their offices over here. But we certainly want the future generations, we keep on talking about them, to have a better understanding of all of these tools which they will have at their dispense. So please make sure that you're well aware and that you know that how to take good advantage of this opportunity. Moving on to the next one, I'm really excited about it. So tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, at 8:30 a.m. in the morning, it will be me alongside Rashid Latif on PTV Sports screens as well, because the first test between Pakistan and England will begin tomorrow at Pindi Cricket Stadium, and PTV Sports will telecast the match live. So please make sure to tune in. We will do a fair analysis of what players really needed to be in the team, whether the squad we have announced, and all of those amazing people who are actually going to be debutants against England, whether they truly did deserve a place or not. I think these are the kind of conversations we will be having. But as of now, I think it's about time that we introduce our topic for today and the guest. Hadia, why don't you do the honors?
Okay, wonderful. So, Shehzad, we've seen that there are a lot of, the international agencies that are operating in Pakistan, especially for the development of the democracy, for the development of the civil society, and also for the development of the electoral processes, training them, strengthening them. And we are really glad about their presence here because obviously they're contributing towards our society. So one such a very broad organization that we have in Pakistan, and it's obviously contributing much in terms of the research and development and obviously training and emerging practice with the the research, is the FES, the Freitrag Ebert Stiftung, right?
Yes.
It's a German organization, and Germany has always contributed a lot.
True.
So we are very glad that we have been joined by the regional director in the Asia Pacific of FES, who happens to be Mr. Marc Saxer. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to World.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you over here. And for all our viewers who are out there, just in case if you have short-term memory loss, ladies and gentlemen, just a few months ago, obviously, we had the ambassador from Germany all the way over here on our show, where we celebrated 70 years of Pakistan and Germany's diplomatic relationship. And it was great to be in conversation with them because they kind of did open up a lot of topics where Pakistan and Germany are contributing. Not just that, when we speak about flood over here, we have been in conversation with the ambassador. They already had the fund and they've been helping Pakistani people when they were in dire need. But now today the conversation is going to be a little different. So first up, we would want you to explain to our viewers what FES is, and then we'll take it from there onwards.
Well, FES is a German foundation that's been set up exactly 100 years ago by the first elected president of Germany, Friedrich Ebert. That's the namesake of our foundation. So basically, this is scenarios
1926 probably, right?
1923.
23.
So it's the end of World War I. Europe is in shambles. We've been having war with each other for a long time, and it was a very threatened democracy, that later the Nazis took over from the Weimar Republic. So that president knew that two things. Number one, if you want a strong democracy, you need people who understand democracy. So this is what we do, civic education. And number two, he was promoting peace and amity in the world. And that's what we do right now in 100 countries around the world, Pakistan being one of them.
Wow, that's wonderful. So imagine an organization which has been global, for more than 100 years. Let's just understand the importance of democracy first of all, and then why do we think that democracy is the way forward for each and every nation on this planet? So I think we're going to stick to this one first of all. So give us an overview of why democracy is important.
Well, if we look at the challenges that countries are facing right now, my country, Germany, the country where I reside, Thailand, the country where we're in right now, Pakistan, we're going to go into an entirely new world right now with all the geopolitical challenges and climate change and whatever. So what you need to do is basically to adapt your development model very quickly. You have to rebuild your structures very quickly. And there is basically three political answers to do that. Number one, you don't want it at all. That's a conservative answer. Number two, you want radical change very quick, no matter what the cost. That is usually the progressive answer. So what democracy does and what social democracy does, what I stand for, is to say, yes, we need change quick, but we need to take everyone with us, right?
That's democracy.
That is democracy.
That's the true essence of it.
Exactly.
So wonderful. Let's talk about the concept of the migration and the immigrants. And Shahzad, we know that whenever we have this conversation on the refugees, Germany is very much has open-heartedly accepted them. And recently, their Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that it's a country of the hope, especially for the immigrants and the refugees, because Germany has been assisting them fleeing the war in their home countries. So let's talk about that, especially the immigrants and the refugees, and how did the FES come into the equation?
Well, maybe a story. I live in a neighborhood in Berlin where the main languages are Arabic and Turkish.
Wow.
Right? So this is basically the neighborhood where I live, and we get along with that very well. This is obviously not all new comers. They have been coming since the 1980s, since the 1960s sometimes, and are there for the second or even third generation already. I'm not saying there have been no problems along the way. Obviously, integration goes both ways, and people come from very different cultures, and we have to have an honest conversation about each other, about norms and values and all these things. But all in all, I would say it's been a success story, and Germany has been benefited greatly from the influx of talented, hardworking people.
Yeah, and in addition to that, where you mentioned whether you want things to change, because we spoke about democracy as of now. So, from Germany's perspective, how is it, so is it like an overnight thing, that they want that radical change and it does not really matter what it's going to cost them, or they certainly want to stand by the value of democracy you just shared with us?
Well, Germany is a strongly democratic country, so I don't think that there is a real threat to that. But obviously, we're going through rough times right now. We have been seeing challenges, financial crisis, the euro crisis. Now we have the war at our border in Ukraine. All of these challenges need pretty robust and radical answers, something that people are not used to. So overnight, we have to change a lot. And of course, there is lots of debate and criticism about that. This is what democracy is all about. But I think we're giving them the answer that I told you, is that we try to bring everyone with us together.
And is it working any good for Germany then?
Well, I think we have made a lot of changes. I mean, give you one example.
Sure.
Overnight, we have been cut off our entire energy supply, gas supply from Russia. So there was great fear that people would be freezing in the winter, and there's also great fear that the energy prices would skyrocket. Something that you're also familiar here, I would say.
True.
So the government has introduced an energy cap, basically saying that you do not have to pay, the family in the household, but also the industry, the business sector, more than a certain price for the energy, because we know otherwise there will be grave social problems as well as grave problems for the economy.
Wow.
And Germany is considered to be the leader of the Europe, and especially it is driving the European Union, and sometimes it is also related with the Felix, because how it rises from the ashes, especially we saw after the World War II, how it industrialized the massive scale and how it rebounded its economy, right? So we've seen that the world is changing from the unipolarity, we're moving towards the multipolar world order. How do you see the Germany's role in the changing world?
Well, first of all, Germany, like so many other countries, need to adapt fast. We have been having the privilege of having cheap energy supplies from Russia. That is history. Yep. We have been a very strongly export-oriented country. Now we see problems in a lot of export markets that are closing up. We've seen in the pandemic, but also now that if you produce, for instance, a car in Germany, it has 40,000 components from almost every country in the world.
Wow.
So now imagine in a pandemic, all these supply chains overnight freezing up. So that means factories in Germany are at a standstill because some part is missing from some country in the world, or some ship in some port which is now under lockdown.
True.
So these are grave challenges that are actually really threatening the way that we do our business, and that means we have to adapt very fast, and that's the conversation that's going on right now.
And just in addition to that, since I'm a car enthusiast myself, I've always loved German cars, and They're very expensive in Pakistan. So I think we might need to work on this area. But before we, obviously Hadia needs to continue with the conversation. So I'll let her and then come back to my point. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we wanted to talk about the climate change because it's a very pressing issue, and it is equally adversarially affecting Pakistan, obviously, as the Germany, because we have seen that how Rhine River has shrunk, and we've seen how River Indus was bloated, and these two rivers have a very ancient civilizational history and a national identity for both of our nations, right? So referring towards the concept of the climate justice and the loss and damage reparation fund that was set up, I mean, how do you see the things rolling out there? I mean, why are there so many voices which are coming from within the Europe, from within the world that are, asking to pursue the coal and the coal-based energy, which is extremely, what you can contribute towards the carbon emissions?
And are still unheard.
Well, I mean, I personally come from the River Rhine. It's where I'm born and raised, and I'm used to giving all the water getting in the basement, and you have the rubber boots and all that. But it's getting worse, and that is, I think, an effect of climate change. And I think there is no respectable scientist around the world who would deny that there is such a thing as climate change. So the question is why we're not doing more about it, or not faster. And I think there is two answers to that. One of them is on the global level, which you basically allude to, where we have all the 197 nations have to come together and make a deal, so to say, about who is bearing the cost for adaptation. And I think here we see that a lot of the geopolitical tensions having the effect that it's very difficult to make any deal on any global challenge for humanity. So that is one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is if we go into our nations, into Pakistan, into Germany, into any country, we have for a very long time having a narrative where we say environmental protection, climate change is a cost that could undermine development and economic growth. And I think that is the wrong way of putting it. Actually, the conversation in Germany, for instance, is starting to change right now, what you call the Green New Deal, which is to say, look, if we invest in these new energies, renewables, and these new products and these new technologies, that also opens up new global markets that will have green growth and green jobs. So it's actually it is about the future that we have to invest in. It's not a cost, it's an opportunity.
But Mr. Marc, I'm sorry, Shahzad, I know you have something to say, but I wanted to ask you, let's, re-examine the role of the IMF or the World Bank that was specially formed after the World War II. And they reflect the realities of the World War II and do not reflect the realities of the climate change, which is such a stark issue nowadays. Take the example of Pakistan, right? So we have to take the finance from these world creditors, but we also know that we have been hit by the flooding and our infrastructure is, damaged. There's $30 billion of the losses. 9.1% of our GDP losses are because of the climate losses. So why is there not conversation regarding rethinking the financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank? And I think Germany is the pioneer of this liberal world order. So what do you have to say on that?
There's actually two issues that you're raising. I think they're both very valid. First of all, it's on climate change. And I think there is a policy right now in place that there is no more support for fossil fuel, or especially coal-powered electricity producing plants. So I think that is a thing that is already happening, so that we're phasing out coal. This is something that Germany is also doing, actually is phasing out of coal as well as nuclear power at the same time, which is an enormous challenge for a country to do. The second issue that you're raising is the legitimacy and the representativeness of these Bretton Woods institutions, World Bank and IMF, and that is the geopolitical question, where, for instance, question being raised from China, from India, and many other countries around the world, who are saying, well, you founded these institutions in 1945, but this is not the world of 2022. So we need to have to adapt that. But, there is no deal until there is a deal. I think that's how politics works. So I think these negotiations are all ongoing, part and parcel of that grand deal about the next world order.
Exactly. And in addition to that, obviously, I would want to come back to where we've been speaking about renewable energy resources. And it's great that the conversation is happening. But what I'm trying to think over here is that for all of those electric cars which are coming out, where do you think all of those batteries are going to go in the next 20 years? Because it's going to work for 10 years, it's not going to recycle, it will not decompose. How do you think that we're going to get rid of that? So are we trying to label some more problem for us as renewable energy resource?
That is certainly a very difficult question to answer. I'm not a technical expert.
True.
But I can tell you that we have a very similar conversation about nuclear power in Germany since the 1970s, 1980s, because we also do not know what to do with the nuclear waste. There's no solution for that. And you're producing that, and you're producing that over decades, and you don't know what to do with it, right? You can't just dump it in the ground, right? And I think we're going to have a similar conversation about these batteries, as you say. I think you would have to talk to a technical engineer who can explain you precisely the details.
But obviously, in days to come, we certainly need policies around that. Yes. I think that's it. That we would want the think tanks or the visionaries out there to kind of consider that, because we cannot just label one more problem as renewable energy resource. But now let's come down to after climate change, about the humanitarian crisis. We have seen how things have been in Afghanistan very recently. What is FES's take on the humanitarian crisis within Afghanistan?
No, first of all, my heart goes out to the people of Afghanistan. We used to have an office there, working there for more than 21 years, and also an office that we had to evacuate last year. So I'm also very personally invested in Afghanistan. It's a country that's very close to my heart.
Okay.
You know that the Pashto Afghan people believe that Germans and Afghans have the same ancestors. Right? So I'm always very warmly greeted whenever I was there. But I completely agree with you. It's an enormous crisis, and I think the world is ready to help. But I think it's not exactly the easiest political circumstances to do so.
And if all of a sudden you would have started to speak Pashto, nobody could tell that you were from Germany. But now coming down to Pakistan, okay, so you've worked with middle class, democracy, human resource. We have human resource in abundance. How do you think that we can make that a capital of our country and utilize it to full potential?
Well, I mean, the conversations that I'm having here in Islamabad now, there's a great worry that Pakistan may have missed the bus.
Okay.
Because if you look to, let's say, East Asia, South Korea, China, Taiwan, these kind of countries, they had this enormous opportunity starting in the late 1970s, 1980s, and they become the factory floor of the world, right? True. So they could go and take 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people and put them in a steel plant or something like that. A lot of jobs, a lot of livelihoods, and that was getting these economies started. Now you see that around the world we're replacing human workers with robots and AI, right? So if you go to a factory floor right now, even in Pakistan, by the way, you see there's only, let's say, 200 people in the entire factory, right? So that is a big problem, because you have a growing population, you have a lot of talent, but that talent is in these easy manual jobs no longer needed globally. So the question is, what kind of role can Pakistan play in the global value chains of the future, where all this labor needs to find its place?
Exactly, and in addition to that, you started your career over here in Islamabad 20 years ago. So let's come down to that. So work, we have finished that shop closed. Now let's talk about how your career was. How has it been in Pakistan for you, and how is it coming back? So after how many years are you coming back? Because you started your career as an intern in Islamabad, in Pakistan.
Well, I've been to Islamabad again and again, but the story that you refer to, that's 2004. Wow. A much younger man, less gray hair, and I was an intern, and they gave me a wonderful project to do a young leadership program in Peshawar. Wow. So I was going there all by myself, and I loved every minute of it. And I must say, Pakistan has always retained a very soft spot in my heart.
And what are some of the similarities do you see, cultural similarities between Pakistan and Germany? I do feel, I visited the Bavarian side of the Germany, and they have a very strong familial ties, right? The family ties are really strong. And I do feel we have a very strong family support system here in Pakistan. So what are some of the similarities that do you see, cultural similarities in both the countries?
Well, what I appreciate the most when I come to Pakistan is it's a very intellectual culture. People love a good debate. There is a certain kind of wit that I like a lot. People like a laugh. I like that a lot. So it's less stiff than the Germans, but always ready for a debate, always having good arguments, and that makes it very stimulating to be here.
Exactly, so it's always wonderful. And let's talk about the cuisine. Is there any, mix and match of Germany and Pakistan over here that you were able to discover in terms of cuisine?
Well, this is where I got familiarized with chicken tikka, right? So this is something that's been with me my entire life. I can never resist a juicy piece of chicken.
So I'm going to recommend you one restaurant. If you get a chance, please make sure to go there. It's an F8 Markaz. It goes by the name of Lahori Tikka. Yeah, so just go over there. You'll find the best tikka and the best fish over there. It's a recommendation for everybody out there. I think it's wonderful. But thank you very much, Marc, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And it's an honor to have completed 70 years of diplomatic relations with Germany for Pakistan, and it has always been great to host people from Germany every time. And it's my dream. I've always felt it that I seriously want to be on Autobahn with a Ferrari, having no speed limits to it as well. And that's something which I'm looking forward to, inshallah, in days to come. But once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're actually going to head out towards a short break. We have discussed the humanitarian crisis, we have spoken about climate change, we've spoken about Pakistan-Germany relationships, cultural similarities. Now it's about time that we give you somebody who's actually going to share their life story while you will be inspired, so let that transcend. We're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Guten Morgen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we had a German here in the Pakistani. Now we are going to talk to someone who happens to be Pakistani, but she is in the Germany, and we are going to relate to her experiences. And she was also anchor here, and how it has changed in the entire career, and what sort of changes is she witnessing in the journalism. So we are very glad that we have been joined by Hadia Zulqarnain, who happens to be a host and anchor person. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you very much for this amazing introduction and welcome.
You deserve
Guten
that.
Morgen. Guten Morgen.
Guten
How are
Morgen.
you?
We get us in.
Wow. I think I have literally got finished with my German at Guten Morgen. So certainly never knew what's going to be the answer for that. But thank you very much for joining us, Hadia. It's wonderful. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, Hadia actually started or initiated their TV career back in 2009 with Pakistan Television Home, then went on to host a lot of programs, news bulletins, and whatnot. And then she recently, not even recently, I think then she actually thought to herself that, okay, I certainly want to get some international air in my career path as well. So she went to Germany. She's been working over there as well. So Hadia, first things first, we certainly want you to inspire a lot of women out there. How was your journey? Were you always looking forward to doing TV in the first place, or was it a fluke for you? Let's get started with there.
Over here, my mother has been a very good person and very supportive. And after I joined TV, she was the one who actually reminded me that when I was a kid, around 4, 5, 8, I used to have that dupatta and a notebook in front of me, and I used to read news, PTV Khabarnama news. And I always used to say, Mama, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to read news like that. I had forgotten about that as I grew up, but then Mama once reminded me of that. So you could say that as a kid, I always was inspired by whatever I saw on the television screen. And out of all the programs, Khabarnama, dupatta, and reading with a very disciplined way was something that inspired me.
And that is sort of an identity. I think a lot of people can relate with the PTV, and especially with the very big names like Kawal Naseer Sahiba, Shaista Azad Sahiba, and all of that. So now you are residing in Germany, in Frankfurt, I believe. Yeah. So explain us what are some of the, because you have also done, practiced the journalism there, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the changes that you have seen that have undergone throughout the years?
Since I joined in 2000, I was very young at that time, and I was exploring things. And I having to have landed in a place here that was absolutely fast-paced. You need to be mentally very alert. You have to have that curiosity inside you that pushes you to learn more. I had that, and I can tell you that this is one thing that has not changed. You go wherever you go, you need to have your curiosity and an urge to keep moving forward.
True.
So that is something that's constant. But other than that, the technology, that has changed, and with technology there are a lot of things that have taken changes that have taken place in the minds of the people. Previously we were not too much into social media and instant reporting, but right now you can see that everyone has that access. And if a young person like me, when a few years ago I must say, had that passion to explore, now is a very good time. It's a very supporting time. Also, when you move countries, when you move continents, you learn a lot. Once you learn the language, that helps you integrate way better. If you don't learn the language, and we were just talking about that, people who go to other countries and get their hands on the language are way more integrated.
True.
They understand the culture better, they understand the rules and regulations, and at the same time they know how to make their way through organizations, their passion, their hobbies.
Right.
So this is something very important.
And they're able to get their driving license as well.
Which is a big challenge.
Yeah, but in addition to that, what I wanted to ask was that, okay, I'm glad that you actually spoke about that the technology is going to be different when you go to move around different regions of the world. With technology, what I have witnessed is that, when you go to a far more developed country than yours, and I have to be very honest over here, Germany, we've spoken about it, happens to be a leader in the Europe. And we've all been in love with German technology. The practices are different too.
Yes.
So the way professionalism is over here, in Germany, the professionalism is going to be really very different.
Yes.
How do you think that you were able to cope up with that professionalism? And do you think that the professionalism over here back then when you were working in Pakistan was exactly the same when you got to Germany, or was it not?
I'd like to answer this question by compartmentalizing
Sure.
it first. There's a passion.
Yep.
There's your work ethic, and then there's this discipline and system set up in an organization or institution.
Or like a standard operating procedure.
Yes. So when you learn the language and when you're open to learning things and getting into a system, at that point you have to unlearn a certain things as well.
Okay.
So for me, it was important to learn and at the same time unlearn things so I could be more receptive. In Germany, there is a protocol for everything.
Okay.
They put you through intensive training. They make sure that you learn everything from the root level, grassroots level, and they train you. They give you opportunity to practice before you get into the actual business.
Yeah.
So over there, they're very, very programmed, disciplined, planned. There is this Ausbildung, it's a vocational training. There's also master's degree, there's also academics that support every profession. So if I want to get into a television a company or a studio, I have the option to either go through the academics or vocational training. So that's two things for two different people there. And after that, you land in the same place. Whether you came from the university or you came from the vocational center, you land in the same spot. Now that's where the difference comes.
And is there a debate that, okay, you came from the vocational training, you never came from the university?
I'm going to stay out of that debate, but yes, you're right. There is that debate to some extent, but what overruns it, what dissolves it, is how you perform there.
Exactly. So, you move to a country, you learn their language, you started from the very basic, you learned all the grassroots SCPs as well, and then you made your way, alhamdulillah. But eventually, after even learning the language, you made your way in the Dutchland TV Urdu service, Germany.
Yes.
How does it work over there? Because it's not the language of masses. So, for somebody who was on Pakistan television where the reach is in millions of people, and then you landed yourself or your career in a service where it's more for the Pakistani people or the people who understand Urdu. How does that work, and how do you balance it? Do you love it about your career, or do you think that you would certainly want to venture into, the German language channels as well?
I love that question because this is something I'm currently working on, and this is the struggle that I faced in the beginning. Just like you said, your German was finished at that sentence. I have been like that for months and years.
And let me be very honest, I just tried opening up my friend from Germany's inbox because I asked him previously when the last time people from Germany were on the show, he sent me a few sentences, but unfortunately, they're not there anymore. Please continue.
Well, if it's a friend, you shouldn't trust. So, when I went there, I was approached by Urdu Radio Deutschland, and that's a web TV.
Yeah.
And the main purpose of Urdu Radio Deutschland is to promote Urdu language. We have a limited community. In Germany, Pakistani community is not as large, as big as the ones in USA, Canada, and UK. Over there in Germany, there are people scattered all over Germany, and there are very, very few people that come together on events, Eids and everything. So there was a need to understand the system, health system.
Wonderful.
There were problems, struggles with lawyers, with legal systems, with coming into Germany and settling here, getting registered. There's a long process. So there was a group of people, Hassan Raza being the lead. He thought that it was really important to bring these basic pieces of information in Urdu language to women, to children, and to men that struggle with learning German
We have
language.
the Pakistani diaspora over there.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm, alhamdulillah, a part of it. Initially, when I moved to Germany, for 4.5 years, we lived in Kiel. That's a coastal city way up in north. Very few Pakistani people there. We never got a chance to integrate there. But once I moved to Frankfurt in 2019, then COVID happened. Just in the beginning of 2021, we started coming together. We had Eids, namaz, we had Eid Milan parties, we had other health-related issues and programs. Pakistani consulate over there is extremely supportive, very, very active. They bring doctors together, they bring professors together from Pakistan that are residing there, and they make sure that all the Pakistani people, community living there, get the information that they are lacking at the moment. German embassy over there, and Dr. Faisal is the ambassador at the moment. Absolutely lovely support coming from the office. Wonderful. And just recently, before flying here, I think just a day prior to my flight, I hosted POAF Talent Award Show. That is Pakistan Overseas Association Forum, and that is a forum that helps encourage people from different walks of life.
And I'm very sorry to ask, but did they pay you well?
Oh yes, they did.
That's wonderful. So very quickly, before Hadia kind of comes up with her question as well, what I wanted to ask was that you spoke about your mother and how the support system was over here in Pakistan. Alhamdulillah, you have two lovely kids. We've just witnessed that. Alhamdulillah, alongside your husband who's very supportive. He's here with you. You know, in Frankfurt or probably in Germany or in any other part of the country, wherever you go outside Pakistan, it's you, hands-on job, and then you have to look after the household. You know, both the parents can do that, and that's wonderful.
Yes.
But then there might be this part that, it does get a little difficult, you know, every time trying to do something, you know, the pace is a little slower because there's so many things that you really need to cope up with. So how, as a woman in the first place, were you able to do that while you were in Germany? And then how do you think that all of those amazing women who are out there can actually do that themselves?
Yes, excellent question.
Thank you, man.
This is something, if I am here for a few minutes, I need to, you need to make sure that a message goes out there. It is extremely psychologically, physically, mentally draining to raise kids, and at the same time, it's the best thing I've done in my life. I enjoy it thoroughly. I did have a chance, and this is for all the women who are thinking, or maybe in a situation where they're about to give up on their passion and hopes. I would say I had a lot of moments like that, and I kept going. I did not stop. It exhausted me. It made me frustrated. But I thought, if this is one little light inside me that I can keep lit and keep going with the support of my children and husband, then I must do that for myself. Because once you have kids, you lose your identity, and that's the dark side or difficult side of being a parent, and it happens to fathers as well. You have kids, right?
Yeah, I have 3 daughters. I'm thinking whether I've lost my identity or whether I've increased the average of my identity. I think I've increased the percentage of people now referring to me as a father.
Yeah, wonderful. You're sitting here today, you are getting a message out to other people, so you definitely have your identity polished. That's great. And a supportive spouse at home, that is a very, very
And all of a sudden, I feel as if I am being interviewed.
Well, that comes from a former anchor.
That's natural. That's natural. And, you know, everybody needs to take it this way, that at least I think that, you know, hosts are successful only if the next person is able to, you know, give you all sorts of answers with all honesty and keeping and putting their heart in it.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. So for a moment we did forgot that. But okay, we were doing an interview, but it started that way, and we would want people to take inspiration from that.
Wonderful. So we've seen, Shahzad, there are Pakistani diaspora in Germany, and especially Pakistani engineers, because they're one of the best in the world, and there are a lot of spaces which are open in the Germany, and they're also encouraging the skilled migrants. So from the eyes of the journalism, how do you see the Pakistani diaspora in Germany?
I see the Pakistani...
I knew where the conversation was going already. Yes, please, continue.
I also saw the finger tap and I understood that, so I stopped. Okay, so the thing is that over here, we take a lot of things for granted. When I was here, we were given desk duties. And I remember that we used to be not very excited, but I still learned a lot from there. Yeah. Once I went there, I kept looking for opportunities to learn and get some training. Over here in PTV, you get trained for free.
True.
And that is such a big blessing. I have a little regret in my heart that why did I not take more time out for the desk editing job and to make news and to learn the whole system in master control room. But over there, when we go there, we feel the certain instant disconnect from our Pakistani community, friends, relatives, culture, the air, food. Food is a big factor. I missed food a lot.
Do you get bored a little? You know, when you don't get the same biryanis and kormas.
Oh yes, and that is the only motivation that pushed me to learn to cook. So with that disconnect, we instantly think that we've lost our identity, we've lost a part of us. Some people can survive that phase and find something for themselves. Those who don't, they try to come back to their own country, and that's perfectly fine, whatever you do. But over there, we're more active. I can say that we look for opportunities, and now I'm at a point after a few years where I think about creating opportunities for the newcomers. So we have been through that, and we know what the new people are going through. They're going to be going through this phase of being lost or thinking, why are we even here? So just to give them a little bit of support, there are talent award shows, there are there's theater in different cities. Urdu Radio Deutschland has basically rooted this, and they take it from one city to another with people. And let me tell you something, everybody does that on voluntary basis. Hardly anyone gets paid, but we do get paid. We do get paid, but that's a different currency, and we're okay with that.
Yeah, all right.
I'm not talking about euro. I hope
we
you
get
understand.
paid. Alhamdulillah, we're very happy about what we do over here. I'm glad that nobody asked for a free service from us. Alhamdulillah. That's the kind of brand imaging we've done over here.
For us, the recognition, support, and feeling a little bit accomplished.
That's what they sell us as well, yeah. That's what they sell us over here as well. Sir, this is such a bigger platform. You'll come, imagine. And I'm like, yeah, bro, we're happy at home. Once you have money to afford us, please make sure that you let us know.
Yes.
Because there's something which I've witnessed, even in the field of business. Everything is a business idea. Yeah, and, everybody's working on that business idea. So by saying these terms, especially when you're outside your country, there's so much recognition, you're doing this for your country. I'm like, hey, you know what? Everybody's time is the most important aspect of their life. And if they're giving it to you, you need to have some respect and give them what they deserve. But having said that, in addition to that, because you just said that, that you're now thinking of creating opportunities for other people out there, irrespective of the fact whether they're from Pakistan, Bangladesh, anywhere, how would you want to tap on your enterprising side of your personality?
Well, for that, I will have to do that on a personal level. I am already working on it, and like you said, that I hope that they paid you well. Yes, they did pay me well. This is basically how you how proactive you are.
And you're motivated too, yeah. You're like, okay, this is something which I want to give my energy, put my energy in, and then because you're going to reap the benefits next time, you're going to work harder on that, right?
And this is what I would like to share with all the people that are struggling or are thinking, you know, what's the use, we're not making any money out of it. There does come a time when you start making money. Here we are blessed that all the setup is here, things are working, the systems are going on, but over there we're actually pioneering that. So initially we understand that we're not going to get money out of it, but we do know that at some point we might be able to get there.
I agree to it 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, I was in conversation with my nephew, so he started singing.
Okay.
So I'm trying, alhamdulillah, as much as gigs you know, he can get. You know, I'm trying, talking to other promoters as well, and then all of a sudden one day he was like, because now he's done 2 or 3 gigs. She was like, Bhai Mamu, why am I not getting paid? I was like, yeah, everybody when they start their career, they don't get paid. And eventually when you create that space for yourself, where people want to listen to you, when there's demand, people will start to pay you as well. So I think this is very important for people who are actually just getting started with their careers. Even if you have to do some things for free, please make sure that you do that. So that one, you obviously share what kind of skill level you have. And number 2, that how much you can contribute towards them as well. And then they will realize the importance, especially, you know, not in Pakistan specifically, and not that you know, the things are very wrong over here, unfortunately. There are good organizations, then there are organizations who will misuse you, usually private, who will misuse you. So what happens is that people are unable to identify where do I need to put in my hard work, and whether I should have or I shouldn't have. So what's your take on this very quickly?
I'd say research. I researched my way to everywhere that I wanted to be. I made sure that I knew how to get in Deutsche Welle. I made sure I knew how to get in touch with Pakistani community, because you need a platform. And like for your nephew, a little piece of unsolicited advice, but maybe it will work for him. When there's no light, we don't look in that direction. But when we do see light, our eyes automatically, naturally follow the light. So you have to build yourself up. You have to brighten yourself. And you do that by learning the skill, practicing, polishing. And when there's some light, everybody turns towards that.
Exactly.
So this is something that we're doing in Germany. Every person that's even sitting at home, they're doing that in their own big or small capacity and role. So this is basically what we need to do. You research your way, you understand where the finish line is, and then you move towards it.
So in a nutshell, use your brain.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
And
Hadia.
Google.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hadia, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation
Thank
with you,
so
that too
much.
after a long time.
Thank you.
So we were still unable to figure out whether we've done a bulletin together or not. But I think we have grown up, alhamdulillah, you know, and to see you as successful, a lady in Germany, you know, doing so wonderfully well. Pakistan takes pride in you. Thank you very
so
much for raising the flag high, for bringing back a lot of pride for Pakistan as well. And wherever you're going to go, you're the ambassador of Pakistan. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you
for
so
being
much.
that light. And for everybody who's out there, Hadia, do you want to say something?
Okay, so I wanted to say that German people epitomizes punctuality, and I think that is something missing in Pakistan. But obviously,
not really. Yeah. I mean, we have never been late, have we?
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's it. I mean, if we are coming, they know that we'll be on time. If we're not coming, they know a day before that we're not coming.
I mean, I wish a lot of people are like us, right? So, but again, then we have a lot of things, lot of Pakistani culture that we take pride in, alhamdulillah. And this is why, I mean, whenever we go abroad after 10 or 15 days, we are like, we want to come back because we miss Pakistan so much.
Chapati ki game hai apni zara. Biryani zara phir halki masale wali
nihari, yeah.
Naan thoda sa crispy sa ho. Nihari ko aapne यूं उठाया नान में हल्का सा अदरक हल्का सा पुदीना और वाह.
You need breakfast.
Yeah, I need nihari. All right, till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, look after yourselves. These are the blessings we get over here in Pakistan. Make sure while you're here, enjoy them all. Till the next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning, Pakistan Zindabad.